Attention ASRM Today listeners, are you ready for the event of the year? Register now for the ASRM 2023 Scientific Congress and Expo, the premier conference for reproductive medicine happening in New Orleans, Louisiana, October the 14th through the 18th. Get ready to immerse yourself in cutting-edge scientific sessions, engaging workshops, and once-a-year networking opportunities. Discover the latest breakthrough in reproductive science, exchange ideas with industry leaders, and expand your clinical knowledge. With over 200 expert speakers and hundreds of exhibitors showcasing the latest advancements in reproductive technology, this is the event you cannot afford to miss. Mark your calendar and register now for ASRM 2023 New Orleans by visiting www.asrmcongress.org. On with the show.
Welcome to ASRM Today, a podcast that takes a deeper dive into the current topics in reproductive medicine.
I'm Jeffrey Hayes, and today on the show we are talking about the Embryo Atlas. To help guide us in this conversation is returning guest. I guess at this point I could say that this is a returning all-star to the ASRM Today podcast, Dr. Sangita Jindal. Dr. Jindal, how are you today?
Oh, good morning, Jeff. It's lovely to be here again with you.
Fantastic. So let's jump right into it. So how did this atlas develop?
Okay, good question. So this is an embryo atlas, and the Society for Reproductive Biologists and Technologists, who represent lab staff and lab directors within ASRM, they decided many years ago, maybe 8 years ago, to develop this atlas. And it's an atlas of images of eggs and fertilized eggs and cleavage stage embryos and blastocysts. So a task force was created and images were collated. They obtained copyright permissions. And all of these images are bright field images of embryos and eggs magnified 200 times under an inverted microscope. But it has taken 8 years now, we're in 2023, for this project to come to fruition. And I should mention it's a joint venture between SRBT and SART, which is the Society for Assisted Reproductive Technology, which represents IVF clinics in the US.
This project took so long to develop, it gestated so long. Why then do we need this atlas?
So historically, we've had paper-bound atlases, which we've used, to teach ourselves what eggs and embryos look like under the microscope and what the specific structures and features of eggs and embryos are and what they mean. And we use these atlases to understand what is considered morphologically normal or abnormal. And the evaluations are subjective, but they're well informed, and they have contributed over the years to establishing a consensus of embryo scoring. So we use these atlases and these glossaries of terms and scoring tools to harmonize embryo grading between labs and across the field. So we're all in agreement with what we're seeing and what we're grading. Embryology labs in the US who are SART member clinics are required to participate in proficiency testing and in competency assessment to ensure that embryo grading is consistent within the lab and across different labs. But currently, proficiency testing challenges often fail to achieve consensus on embryo grading. So embryo grading remains an important benchmark for laboratories and lab staff to achieve. And over time now, we've moved from paper content to digital content. And there are several digital versions of embryo atlases available globally, and they are excellent. But in order to provide something novel for ASRM and SRBT users, we've developed a digital atlas that is not only housed on a web-based platform through the ASRM Academy, but it's also interactive. And we are calling this atlas EDGE, which stands for Embryo Data Grading and Evaluation.
You had mentioned that, there are atlases available and that in the past there had been, you'd use paper atlases. So then how is EDGE different?
Right. Good question. So EDGE provides embryologists with an atlas of, to begin with, blastocyst images and 2 well-established grading tools that can be used to improve their grading skills and to compare against embryologists in the US and around the world. So each grade is tallied and then compared to the participant mean score for each image. And the participant mean score for each image is tallied using scores from a task force of content experts, namely senior embryologists and lab directors. So embryologists and trainees grading embryos will be comparing their scores to those of experts. And as new scores are incorporated into the mean score will shift to accurately reflect what users are reporting. This will result in a living document that is interactive and relevant over time.
Who is EDGE designed for then?
Well, it's really for everyone, senior embryologists, junior embryologists. I think a lot of value will be obtained by trainees, but also training clinicians, even, clinical staff such as nurses. I think they can also benefit from understanding how we grade embryos and what we think they look like. The real value, though, I think is for trainees who are entering the field or who are entering an established laboratory and who are learning how to grade embryos correctly. And so our tagline is, get the edge on your fellow embryologists.
That's a good tagline. I got to be honest, and I'm just a little bit biased. If people are looking for EDGE, where can EDGE be found?
So EDGE is being launched this summer, which is 2023, for SRBT members, and early feedback and early data will be presented in a pre-Congress course at the 2023 ASRM Congress, which will be in October in New Orleans. So EDGE is starting out with blastocyst images, and new blastocyst images will be introduced over time, and the old ones will be archived. Eventually, EDGE will feature eggs, fertilized eggs, and cleavage stage embryos.
I want to talk a little more technical just for a moment, especially about scoring. What are the scoring tools used by EDGE?
Right. So as I mentioned, we will have 2 well-established scoring tools. The first one is the Gardner scale. This is an alphanumeric score that measures blastocyst expansion on a scale of 1 to 6. It grades the inner cell mass, ABC, and it grades the trophectoderm, ABC. The other scale is the SART scale, very similar, good, fair, poor, and it's for each developmental stage of the blastocyst, again, for the inner cell mass and for the trophectoderm.
It's 2023. We've keep evolving all the time with the way that we interpret things and grade things. Why does embryo grading matter now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, as you say, we're moving to a model of uninterrupted embryo culture and embryo scoring by artificial or augmented intelligence. So why should we still be interested in subjective grading of these embryos under a microscope? Well, the truth is that the algorithms that grade and rank embryos by AI are built on embryo scores and grades that are done manually by embryologists. And manual embryo grading and ranking continues to be relevant in most, if not all, embryology labs in the US. So if AI is embraced in the lab, and I hope it will be, embryologists should not lose their ability to grade embryos correctly. They'll be unable to troubleshoot any sort of issues with the automation that may fail. They will not be able to rank embryos for embryo transfer or for embryo freezing. They won't be able to demonstrate competency in embryo grading. And as of now, embryo grading is a competency and proficiency testing requirement by embryologists working in accredited SART member labs.
I appreciate you being able to be here today. And I know we're a little running short on time. For our listeners, what would you say is the takeaway message about EDGE?
I would say that EDGE is an interactive web-based platform for grading embryos. There are 2 scoring tools provided, images are provided, and participants will score the embryos and compare their scores to mean scores by experienced embryologists. The EDGE platform will be updated with new images consistently over time, and the scoring will be expanded in the future. But as of 2023, I would say embryo morphology remains the gold standard and sets the benchmark against which all emerging methods must be measured.
My guest today has been Dr. Sangita Jindal. She has been here talking about the Embryo Atlas /Edge, the interactive web-based platform for grading embryos. Dr. Jindal, again, thank you so much for being able to come on the show.
A pleasure, Jeff. Thank you for asking.
You can contact us if you have any questions, asrm@asrm.org. If you would please subscribe, rate, and review the show on Apple, Google, Podbean, or wherever it is that you get your podcasting done. So many outlets these days. And until next time, I'm Jeffrey Hayes, and this is ASRM Today.
This concludes this episode of ASRM Today. For show notes, author information, and discussions, go to asrmtoday.org. This material is copyrighted by the American Society for Reproductive Medicine and may not be reproduced or used without express consent from ASRM. ASRM Today series podcasts are supported in part by the ASRM Corporate Member Council.
The information and opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect those of ASRM and its affiliates. These are provided as a source of general information and are not a substitute for consultation with a physician.